coach over there that really broke my heart because, you know, I told him we really have a lot of. Okay, well, I will tell them that. Thank you.
All right.
I don't know what you're saying. Cleo, I wanted to ask you something. Yes. An opinion. Lean has entered into an Earth Care partnership with Southern Scrap, which is in your district. And we'd like to have a little, maybe press conference talking about how business and I can support causes and working together for solutions, you know, that kind of thing. And I wonder if you might do the honor, if I could call someone and like fit it into your schedule to come on over and talk about, you know, all of us working together towards solutions. Do you feel good about that? Okay, and Southern Scrap and recycling for hundreds of years.
They're actually doing a lot of
They're working real hard. They seem to be trying, you know. Yeah. So if that's okay with you, who's your lady that's the key to your kingdom? Anita? Okay, that's right. Good morning. Hi. I'm Mary. Hi, Skip. Welcome. Nice to meet you. Hey, Gloria. Welcome. Please come right on in. Yeah. Gloria, you want to sit right there and you can sit with us? We get started in a second. Okay. That's right. Here's the man who's going to show us, the power man.
Are you going to be with us today? Great.
It's all about paper. If you want to look here, just put your hand up on this little piece of thing right here. Just push it in and out. Oh yeah. But don't they? Right. But they have some that's automatic. Yeah. This is automatic. It's automatic. Just visually focus on in. Oh, it automatic focus. I mean, that's the zoom. Okay, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To keep it focused. Yeah. And that's the camera. Each year they get better and better. Yeah. That's why I want to buy one like that. I think it's pretty decent. They're gonna come up.
Where are you going?
They don't.
You just go into the last getaway trials. Yes, you do.
Shake it. It takes a lot. Yeah.
It's now time to review. This is our 5th year of the report card. The first year, a gentleman from New Orleans did the report card. He no longer lives in the state of Louisiana. The report card created such a stir the first year because all the legislators got D's and F's. Then, the next year, the Louisiana Environmental Action Network took over the report card and instituted a new policy, so to speak, of having an honor roll because we felt it was very important to not only show legislators that did not have respect for the environment, but also to honor legislators that had done something special for the environment. And Lean, in that time when we started, we had a group of approximately 5 groups. Now we have 68, is it Mary Lou? Okay, I just did Mary Lou, 65 groups. Just did your introduction. That's fine. All right, the purpose of the 1991 report card is to honor legislators who have taken a stand for the environment. Sometimes this really takes courage because legislators get a lot of pressure from special interests to vote their way. So this is very significant to us to call attention to these legislators who are on our honor roll. Another purpose of the 1991 report card is to identify legislators who do not put the good of the public first. We're not asking these legislators to turn their backs on special interest, but we are asking them to consider public interest as well as special interest. These legislators that we feel did not consider the public interest are on our dishonor roll. We do not do this lightly. We take this job very seriously. We need every vote that we can get in the legislature, and we do not ever want to alienate a legislator. The legislators on our dishonor roll are legislators who have shown that they have no interest in protecting the environment. Lastly, this year, we're going to do something new in that we would like to make suggestions on how legislators can improve the situation in the legislature and basically how they can stay off of our dishonor roll. On our honor roll today, I'm going to start with the Baton Rouge area legislators, and we have 2 New Orleans area legislators that are going to be with us today also. Our Baton Rouge legislators are, and this is in alphabetical order, Representative Kip Holden, who is out of town, Senator Cleo Fields, and Representative Sean Riley. I would like to point out that these are 3 legislators who have been on our honor roll for 4 years. They are not, we cannot say that they are new legislators anymore because they will be going into their 2nd terms, but they were new 4 years ago, and they have been on our honor roll for 4 years. We have with us also Representative Skip Hand from New Orleans, who's with us today, who has been on our honor roll for 2 years, right, Representative Hand? And we would like to hear from our legislators today who are here with us. Would you like to start, Cleo?
First of all, it's indeed a privilege and a pleasure to be on the honor roll for the 4th time. And I take the environment very serious. I don't think there's any commodity more precious than clean air, clean water, and clean soil in the state of Louisiana. And if we're not committed to it, we should be committed to it for our children, because one day I'm going to grow up and I'm married now, and I'm going to have children, hopefully, if God bless me. And I want my children to be able to fish in clean water and breathe clean air and dig in clean soil. And that's why I fight so hard for a clean environment, and plan to do it henceforth and forevermore, because it's the right thing to do.
You've got details on why the dishonor roll, but unless I'm missing it, I don't see.
There are no details on the honor roll. We just felt that it would be too long of an explanation and that the media would be more interested. We basically have to prove why someone's on the dishonor roll. Everyone likes to be on the honor roll, right?
Could you tell us why these 2 are on the honor roll and the others that you mentioned are on the honor roll?
How about let's let them tell. Senator Fields has for 4 years supported environmental legislation. Not only supported, but he has sponsored bills, as Senator Hand has done. So if you would like to tell what you're proudest of as far as your environmental legislation.
I think one of the pieces of legislation that I introduced was the inactive and abandoned hazardous waste sites. In Louisiana, when I first took office, there were over 350 inactive and abandoned hazardous waste sites in the state. I introduced legislation to first get DEQ on the job so that they can identify those hazardous waste sites and then start a cleanup program. Since that legislation, they have identified over 500 inactive and abandoned hazardous waste sites in the state. That's unconscionable, and they are starting to clean them up. That's only one of about 17 bills I've introduced as relates to the environment.
Okay, we have Representative Hand that we would like to hear from, and perhaps he can explain his legislation that he's proudest of.
Well, let me begin by thanking the group. It's through the efforts of watchdog groups like the Louisiana Environment Action Network that the public is informed of legislative activities that protect the environment. I guess the legislation I'm most proud of in this last session dealt with Lake Pontchartrain. I had a bill which prohibited the dumping of improperly treated or untreated sewage into Lake Pontchartrain, which was landmark legislation. It put the regulation of these functions under the Department of Health and brought it under the Administrative Procedures Act and gave us a procedure whereby we can, for the first time, enforce the regulations as to the dumping of sewage in Lake Pontchartrain. It also set a definite deadline. It had a companion resolution that set a definite deadline to put an end to the dumping, whereby these camps and inhabited dwellings would have to have sewage facilities in place by April 1st of 1992 to stop the decade-old problem of this dumping of sewage into Lake Pontchartrain, which I felt was landmark legislation. Of course, for years I fought to stop shell dredging in Lake Pontchartrain, and as you know, we had bills in committee, and through the educational process and through work of groups such as yourselves, We were able to eventually prevail upon the governor and the administrative staff to go ahead and put an end to it administratively. But I think the bill was a lead to that and led to that eventually through the educational process. I've always supported the full funding of the Department of Environmental Quality, which I think is very, very important. As Senator Baggett has pointed out many times, you can have all the laws in the world, but unless you have enforcement of those laws, they are meaningless. So I think it's very important that we support full funding of the Department of Environmental Quality. Like Senator Fields said, clean air and clean water are important to everyone. And you know, what this group promotes is they support those legislators who have fought for those ideals, and I commend you for that.
We've also had join us Senator Ben Baggert from New Orleans, who is a 4-year on our report card too. We'd like to hear from you, Senator Baggert.
Thank you. I don't know what question I'm responding to because I came in a little
No
late.
question.
But just starting on. Well, you know, there's something that a lot of people miss when they talk about the legislators who score good environmental records. And I'm going to talk to you for a moment about practical politics. Because as we know, especially the three of us in this room, the two most important things about politics are money. I plumb forgot about the other. But what the legislators in this room have done by the records that they've compiled and the efforts that Senator Fields and Senator Hand have made is they've cut themselves off from sources of campaign funding that make life lots and lots easier, and they force themselves instead to become better public officials. And they've shown a great deal of courage in doing that. And to those in this room who've never been in the positions that we've been in, positions where you have great ideas, you want to get your ideas out, but you don't have the finances to do it, I think it's a great act of bravery and courage. Senator Fields picked up the gauntlet that I threw down back in 1981, that we shouldn't allow polluters to have tax exemptions, that there's something wrong with a state that acts this way, that there's something wrong with a policy that allows people to come into our state, misuse us, and then not pay any taxes at the same time. The gauntlet that I threw down years ago that Representative Hand has been doing so well with now to help clean up Lake Pontchartrain, which borders his district, because there are powerful interests in this state that contribute to politicians and that don't contribute to those folks that you see in this room. And of all the things that we've done, I think that has been, those are the things that you should be the most proud of. In my own instance, the bill that I was involved with this year, that gave me the most pleasure and the most satisfaction that I've ever had as a public official, as a legislator, was the provision that required that the United States Army Corps of Engineers conduct its operations in a fashion consistent with our wetlands policy. So we passed a bill. It didn't get a lot of attention because it was super complicated. But we passed a bill, and what we said was this. We said, we're going to develop a policy here in Louisiana. Our policy in Louisiana is going to be that you mitigate the damage that you do in our wetlands from here on out. If you're going to dredge for navigation, then you're going to fix it. That's going to be our policy. We don't care who you are, and we don't care how much money you have or how big you are. We don't care if you whipsaw our local ports into thinking that there'll be no more federal money coming from Washington, D.C. We love and we care about these wetlands, and you are the biggest source of destruction of our wetlands now as the Army Corps of Engineers, and you're going to have to mitigate. You're going to have to stabilize these banks. And I believe that history will tell that of all the things that we've done in wetlands preservation in the last 4 or 5 years, this act that we passed, this very complicated and technical act that we passed this year, was the most significant. And it was a pleasure for me to be a part of that. Some people have asked me what kept you going in politics all these years. And I had about 2 burnouts. I guess the first occurred around 1980. And that's when I decided to become an outsider after I'd mastered the inside. And what's kept me going since then has been working on these environmental issues with you. And what's kept me going has been the emergence of the leadership, people like you wonderful people in this room. You came to the legislature, not all of you came in the 1980s, but you came. You were browbeat. You didn't take the legislators on big fat dinners. You didn't contribute campaign contributions to them. You didn't take them to the duck camps, Eloise. But you were there. And in the beginning, when you came to the committee meeting, the attitudes of the committee was, well, who are these people? We didn't go hunting with them. We didn't go out drinking with them the night before. What makes them think they have standing or status to come talk to us about any issue affecting the state? And they were abusive, they were impolite, but it's not that way anymore. And I think the report card is one of the reasons that it's not that way anymore. Keep giving out the report card. Nice to be with you today, and thank you for, I don't know what I got on the report card, but they tell me I got a good grade. Thanks for the good grade.
And now for the dishonor roll, and I'm going to ask Teresa Robert to present that.
It's my displeasure to give you the dishonor roll. At the top of our list on the dishonor roll are legislators who sponsored legislation that would have rolled back key environmental programs or processes. Interestingly, these legislators have never been on any of our lists before, with the exception of one. Nor are they on environmental committees, with the exception of one. The environmental report card was started in 1987. At the very least, there is the suggestion that these legislators, through lack of knowledge, did not act in the best interest of the state as a whole. At the worst, there is a suggestion that these legislators chose to help special interests who profit monetarily from this type of legislation at the expense of the environment, at the expense of the regular taxpayer, as well as at the expense of the health of the people of Louisiana. Only these legislators know which side they come down on, but we feel they should be held accountable for their actions. The first one is Senator Larry Bankston of Baton Rouge. Second, Senator Armand Brinkhouse of Sunset. Third, Senator Willie Crane of Monroe. Fourth, Senator Oswald DeQueer of New Iberia. Fifth, Senator Sixty Rayburn of Bogalusa. Sixth, Representative Robert Adley of Bossier City. And seventh, Representative James Donnelly of Metairie. Eighth, Representative Billy Montgomery of Halton. Remaining on our dishonor roll from last year because of their lack of initiative, their lack of support, and their bowing to pressure from special interests are several legislators who are members of the House Natural Resources Committee. Polls show that 85% of the people support a clean environment, yet these legislators continuously vote against our environment. These are first, Senator Larry Bankston of Baton Rouge. All right, going to our representatives, and these are in alphabetical order. Representative Charles DeWitt of LeCompte, Representative Carl Gunter of Pineville, Representative Hoppy Hopkins of Oil City. Again, and as always, my own personal representative, Representative Melvin Irvin of Gonzales, Representative Clyde Kimball of New Roads, Representative Ken Ogunay of Arabi, Representative John Siracusa of Morgan City, and Art Sauer, Representative Art Sauer of Shreveport. Thank you.
We have a limited amount of time. I'm going to go through one more category, and you have the other categories in your information. And I'm doing this because we have a senator from Baton Rouge who is on this. This is a category of showing potential, and these are legislators who for the first time or second or third time have taken a stand, either by speaking out in committee or on the floor, or voted consistently for us. We haven't seen enough of them to put them on the honor roll, but we feel that they are showing potential in awakening to the environment. And Senator Mike Cross from Baton Rouge is on that list. Lastly, I would like to go through our suggestions for improving the situation in the legislature. We feel that this is a way that legislators can keep off of the honor roll. We do not enjoy putting legislators on the honor roll. We criticize them for the things that they do. So this year, we would like to make a few suggestions to, we think, help the situation. It's in the best interest of all, the public and legislators, to have a strong legislature. We have a governor who in the past 4 years has come up with many plans for reform. We have many legislators who have fought him all the way on these reforms, yet these same legislators have not come up with any answers to problems or reforms of their own. Those of us who work here in the legislature know that there are many capable, intelligent legislators who have integrity, who can lead this state. We ask them to do so, and we make these suggestions on how to do it. Firstly, we would like to ask legislators to limit the number of bills. Louisiana led the nation last year in introducing 3,700 bills. This open door policy, although it has some good aspects of it, has led to a misuse of this. It is a technique now used to pass bad legislation, and we saw a perfect example of it this year where the environmental citizen had so many bills to follow they could not possibly get from one room to the other physically to follow the bills. We ask legislators to institute long-term, ongoing planning in the legislature with input from citizens as well as special interests. The Senate started this process last year with the Senate Action Committee. We would like to see this expanded to the whole legislature, and we think that this is a professional way to do it, and we think it would serve the legislature well. It would make them as strong as any other branch of government. Lastly, we would like to ask legislators who are sponsoring bills to bring opposing factions together in the beginning of the process of forming the bill. We feel that this could eliminate many problems for special interests, for citizens, and for the legislators themselves. We think that this is good government, especially when it involves perhaps destruction of the environment or destruction of the health of citizens of the state. We think that it is only good business to bring everyone in the beginning and to insist that the opposing sides get together and voice their opinions and perhaps work out some of the issues that we come here to the legislature and fight over, taking up the time of citizens and legislators alike. Thank you. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Could you talk a little bit about the session as a whole? I mean, is this a legislature that essentially the environmental movement can't work with? I mean, is it fundamentally a regressive anti-environmental legislature? I mean, how worried do citizens have to be about this legislature in terms of its willingness to protect the environment?
Well, I think we saw something this year that we had never seen before that is very disturbing to me. I have never seen in the years that I have been down here such an aggressive attack on the environment. And by aggressive, I mean legislators who seem to have no regard for the citizens or the public interest. I've never seen that before this year. And I would hate to think that this would continue. And this is part of our doing the report card, is to bring out the legislators that we feel have done this, because most legislators do not deserve this. And if you don't distinguish the ones who do this type of thing, then you're really not doing your job. So I say I saw a trend this year that worries me very much. I don't really see it continuing because I think so much attention is paid to this now. I think that all over the world the environment is a very important issue and it cannot be ignored in Louisiana. I use the word in my own mind that what happened this year was very primitive. It was like going back to a time when people didn't know a lot about the environment and you could get away with things like this, but I don't think you can get away with it any longer. That answering?
Yeah. What's the general purpose of the dishonor roll? Is it to put legislators on notice, essentially, that they're being watched, that their actions are being scrutinized, to encourage them to perform in a more environmentally conscious way? Is that...
Absolutely. It's, I think basically it's an ongoing it's like a watchdog. That legislators will know that people who care about the environment are gonna be here year after year, and we will have this report card. And it is gonna point out legislators who we feel are destructive in their approach to the environment. And as I said before, this is a very difficult thing to do, and we do not relish this. And we do not put legislators on the dishonor roll unless they have shown a strong and consistent approach to the destruction of the environment.
One last thing.
And it's, this honor roll is so important. It's something that was begun and then I think lapsed and then begun again. First began in 1987 when Ross Vincent was still in Louisiana. And here's why it's so important. Election time comes. 1987, 1991. PAC checks are handed out. Legislators file bills that are antagonistic to clean air, clean water, that are serving special interests. And they take those PAC checks and they go home. And they put nice television commercials on. And you see them walking through verdant fields with birds singing. And just lush vegetation. They're wearing plaid shirts, genuine cotton dockers. Children are all around them, flowers. But their voting record is that of a beast. Now, how's the public going to know? The only way they know is because the men and women in this room put out an honor roll, put out a record or a score sheet. Let me tell you, the special interests put out a score sheet. Lobby put out a score sheet this year. They took big points off of Ben Baggert for voting for clean air. Now, I don't, you know, the small business people in my district might think that Ben Baggert somehow is antagonistic to industry, which is not the case at all. So this is a way of fighting back and balancing the thing. And boy, I'm glad you're doing it. Hope you never quit. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. And there hasn't been a lapse. This is our 5th year. But the first year we gave a lot of D's and F's. And I think that we're really excited to see progress. The next year we were so discouraged by the attitude of the legislators that we felt that we needed to find a system of rewarding those that were listening to the citizens. My first trip to the legislature, a large majority of the folks on committee would be drinking coffee, reading the paper, or generally disinterested in what citizens were having to say. And that's why we feel this is a very important tool and actually should be used by the citizens as a call to action. They need to transfer the information that we're able to give them as pushing, I call it, the lever of power and voting for those legislators that have done a good job in preserving our natural resources, and certainly take the information of those who have not and get them out of office. That's the purpose of this, to let the citizens know. I cannot go any farther without thanking Eloise Wall and Susie Bliskin who give up their time. They are monitors, they are eyes and ears for the citizens who cannot come here every day. We're at a grave disadvantage. The folks have to work, they cannot take the time off, the committee's times are often changed. It's a terrible disadvantage. So Susie and Eloise have been incredible eyes and ears, and I can't thank them enough.
Just one more question. Some of the people on the dishonor roll will say that they're environmentalists, and they have said that, and they've said that what they're trying to do is strike a balance between economic development, job creation, and environmental protection. How would you respond to that? For example, I'll give an example. Willie Crane will say what he was looking to do is, protect some manufacturers he has in his area by, sponsoring bills relating to dioxin and the air toxics program.
That's true. That's true. Legislators do have that problem, and that's what I said in the beginning. We don't ask them to turn their backs on special interests. I mean, special interests are a part of their constituency. But we feel that the legislators on the dishonor roll went beyond the balancing act. And that was also the point of one of our suggestions is we don't feel that this is too tough of a job to do to balance. If you bring in opposing factions in the beginning of the process, and I think legislators like Senator Willie Crane can look at a bill and see this has the potential of destruction of the environment or hurting the health of the people of Louisiana. I think they can look at that bill. We can look at those bills and see that. And when they get a bill like that, because every legislator is going to be asked to do bills like that for special interest, at that point, they can bring in the people that they know who are going to be opposing this. And I think it's not beyond my imagination to see a time when these groups can get together and work out their problems before we get down here and fight it out at the legislature. So I'll say to you that the people on our dishonor roll are not environmentalists, and we have been very, very careful to not put on our dishonor roll people who we feel are balancing.
I have to say, Peter, that talk is cheap, and action speaks louder than words. And their actions have showed that they're not environmentalists. Anyone can go around and use those words because it's a very good buzzword nowadays to get reelected, but actions do speak louder, which is why we appreciate the courage of all our honor roll people, these three gentlemen that are present here today, of which Representative Hand got promoted to a senator. Maybe this means that you're going to be a senator next. We keep calling him senator. We did it several times. Maybe that's right. Maybe so, but it takes great courage because money is key when you're a legislator, and we do not have the money of special interest groups. We do have the people, and we have people power, and that's what we want to use to try to bring about a change in Louisiana.
Can I also make a comment regarding this for a moment? Specifically, since you did bring up that it was still Senator Willie Crane, and what he is on the dishonor roll for, and of course, is for sponsoring 4 almost identical pieces of legislation which would have suspended or banned Louisiana's new air toxic law that would result in a 50% reduction in air toxic emissions. Being an environmentalist for almost a dozen years, this is probably the piece of legislation that is dearest to my heart. This is something that I served as an individual citizen and environmentalist on a air toxics advisory committee. It had people on it from industry, business, etc. And this is something that we almost lost this year. As you know, Louisiana leads the nation in air pollution. And I personally come from a parish that leads the state of Louisiana in air pollution. So this man definitely deserved this grade.
Peter, we have explanations on the dishonor roll of the bills, and I think that goes further into it, why we put them on there and why. In fact, in some of the explanations were cases where there could have been a balance, but the legislator did not seek to or choose to do it in this way.
Sir, this gentleman came out to our community and gave a talk about how worried he was on the environment. These 3 bits of legislation very directly affect our community adversely.
On to the next thing, Nancy.
Tuesday, tomorrow night, the gubernatorial, candidates have all been invited to a forum, okay, to talk about environmental issues. And when's your forum?
Wednesday night in New Orleans.
They're going to come through different committees because they're worded differently. One was a concurrent resolution.
I'm just trying to make the point that some of these people think that they're trying to strike a balance. And I'm just interested in how to go
Marvin.
find balance.
Before we leave, do you have any questions? Want to look over it a little bit?
Because they vote for hunting bills, for fishing bills.
Okay.
That's really a conservation. So there is a big difference. And they like to use that.
Yeah, I do.
Sure, I know you know.
That's all right, we understand problems.
It's okay, we know that Town 2 is having some budget problems. We understand.
And then balance it with
should have brought it to her though, that one.
Well, that is her job to get that there.
They did that lunch where they sprayed the pesticide. The capital did something, but they brought that to you. And then
I didn't say that, but they said they were.
that's suspicious, Mom. They probably thought he had a bomb under that shirt. But you do have to sign in to get upstairs. Well, you never even got your packet. Oh, that's good. We'll factor that too. We'll just factor all that too. Well, I can't push my friend too much. I mean, you know, I don't want to get him upset with me.
Now can you see?
That's very upsetting. When we went, you know, make a special trip, we didn't even decide.
About the way
Called and said I was giving too much information to Rose about hiring an attorney, and that she did not want to jeopardize my position as a supervisor by giving my subordinates too much information.
I want to know who was this lady?
Mary Mitchell, she is the undersecretary of management and finance. That's true. Mary, who is also a political appointee, Martha Swan, called me in and told me that I no longer had anyone to supervise. That the people I had supervised for the prior 6 years were no longer under my supervision. Therefore, she was working me out of classification. My job duties require that I supervise employees. So, I kept asking them, well, why have my people been removed? They never would respond to that. I got no explanation whatsoever, and so after repeated attempts to find out why my people were removed, I called the Department of Civil Service and reported myself that I was working out of classification. They sent someone over from Civil Service to do a desk audit of my position and about 4 others, and in their findings, they put that because I had no subordinate employees, that I could no longer hold the classification that I had. So we are now in the process of a layoff where they have to lay off the supervisory position, which I now hold, and I'm in a bumping process now because I have 24 years state service.
Will it demote you in
Oh,
essence
very
is what's
much.
happening?
Oh,
Does it
yes.
also cut your salary off?
About $1,000 a month.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm very disappointed to hear that. And she's
And
the
Buddy
Undersecretary of
Cromer,
Management,
I have-
Finance, and
right.
Division of Administration.
The deputy secretary, Martha Swan, is the one that's been continuously harassing us. Rose Williams,
Now, who is Martha Swan?
she is the deputy secretary.
Secretary
Now, Mark
and the
Gomez,
DEO coordinator.
and she is
Of
our
DNR?
coordinator. Yes.
That's a shame because Roma really has been a friend of the environment, basically.
Well, he hasn't been a friend
Well,
of
this
us.
doesn't sound good.
There's been no honesty and integrity in any of this.
Secretary.
In fact, I wrote
She's the
Buddy
deputy
Cromer a letter.
secretary.
DNR, right?
In fact, I hand-delivered it to the 4th floor of the Capitol, and I had no response. This was several months
What
ago.
DEO coordinator.
Okay, what is the EEO?
Equal opportunity employment.
I can't get away from the issues.
See, she's supposed to be the person that we can go and talk to about problems and,
And this lady said you were giving too much information to
Right,
employees.
that's exactly right.
well, see, right now, our basic problem is now she's the one harassing us about cutting our pay and,
Okay, but that's the deputy secretary. This one, Mary Mitchell or the
no,
EEO?
deputy secretary.
Martha Swan.
She also reduced
You're gonna go
Rose's.
interview her about it? You're gonna go interview Martha Swan?
The deputy secretary also told Rose has been very ill. She stayed in the trauma unit 6 days after the death of her child, and she's seen numerous doctors since then. Martha Swan gave Rose a letter, a disciplinary letter, cut her salary $400 a month for taking on too much time to go to the doctor, and that is in writing. She sustained a $400 amount pay cut for 6 months.
Bring that with you by any chance. Did you have this letter about
I got
spending
it
too
all
much time?
upstairs.
But you need to give this to Bob. You need to give this to Bob.
She said that Rose was working as a part-time employee because she was having to take off so much time to go to the doctor.
So not only did they poison us and refuse to let us leave that day, then we were disciplined because we got sick. I had to use all of my sick leave. I've used almost 1,000 hours of sick leave. I've exhausted my sick leave. I was injured in a car wreck in July and had to take off 2 weeks under doctor's orders. She gave me a disciplinary letter stating that I exhausted my sick leave and threatening to terminate me because I no longer had any sick leave.
Do y'all have any kind of suit?
Yes.
Pesticide?
I have an environmental whistleblower suit for removing my duties and responsibilities. And we also, there are 12 of us that have a personal injury suit. So, but in the
The
meantime.
sad part is it just takes a long time.
Let me make a reference to what she said earlier. You said something about you do your homework. Let me show you a point that most of America, I think 99% of America doesn't understand about injured employees. We have to do our homework because industry and government has the economic power, income power to buy the best everything possible.
I've been an environmentalist for 12 years, believe me, I see that daily.
We don't have anything. We have a loss of income from the get-go because my salary normally is $13.75 an hour or in that field. Now on this workers' compensation, I'm making a little over $6. So I can't afford to employ the best that money can buy. Industry has this income. Industry has this power. And most of America does not understand that.
So you have to become an expert about what's happened to you.
Right. And you see,
What
the
happens
morning,
forces us to become experts.
the morning after I was called in by the undersecretary about giving Rose too much information, I told her in that meeting that I already had my certified letter from Workman's Comp. They were not going to pay my $25 doctor bill for a sinus infection. The next morning at 9 o'clock, I got a call from the claims adjuster at the Office of Risk Management across the street. They told me they had decided to pay my $25, but that I would have had to drink the pesticide. I told her for it to have caused me any health problems. I took that as my hush money. Little did I know that in 3 months I would have hepatitis, a massive sinus infection where I was supposed to go for surgery. I started running fever 103 and was not able to have the sinus surgery. The sinus problems and the hepatitis, I got some kind of rare virus called cytomegalic virus. It broke down my immune system so much.
What's the name of this virus?
Cytomegalic virus. From the literature that I've read, cytomegalic virus is most people healthy adults that get that are people who have had heart and liver transplants. And that comes straight from the 1991 edition of an encyclopedia. Yes, I have done my homework. The doctor that I was seeing, the infectious disease doctor at Ochsner, after I'd been running fever 103 for 11 days, he took 12 tubes of blood from me to try to find out what was wrong with me. When he got the reports back, he sat there and just shook his head. He said, "Have you ever been set up for this?" I mean, he knew, because I had been telling him right down the line. I mean, I have not worked 1 full week in 2 years.
Do you have a doctor that has made that one-on-one with this particular pesticide? Do y'all have a doctor to testify?
We are presently seeing, Rose and I presently are seeing Dr. Thomas Callender in Lafayette. Yes. But it's hard to get a doctor because most doctors don't know that much about environmental illness.
And after exposure is what happens.
Glad to hear Thomas working with y'all.
Yes, it's good.
It's good.
Well, Rose, are you experiencing problems also?
Every day.
Every day? What you were how long far? Do you mind if I ask you how far along were you with your baby? Were you like?
I was 7 months
7
pregnant.
months.
I was 7 months pregnant, and 2 weeks right after the pesticide, right after the pesticide, I started getting real sick. Where I couldn't hold no food down, I couldn't drink anything, and it got so bad where I couldn't even hold my own saliva unless I was throwing up. So
And how long did that go on before you lost your baby?
about 2 weeks.
She was admitted to the Women's Hospital during that time, where she stayed for 2 or 3 days. But she had to go to the emergency room 3 times during that 2 weeks at Women's Hospital.
What's your last name?
We, it's the
Williams. And there was another woman who also lost her baby.
No, she had to be put to bed due to threat of miscarriage for a week, but she did have her baby. She was 5 months pregnant. There was
See,
another
the lady that was in with me at the time, though, she was scheduled for to have a surgery done. And all her tests that after this pesticide, all her tests kept showing that she was not pregnant. And wasn't nothing wrong with her but that particular item that they was gonna operate on her for. But when the doctor opened her up, he seen that she was 5 months pregnant. And if, like he said, if he had cut just a little bit deeper, he would have killed the baby because he wouldn't have never known she was pregnant. And she had to walk around here with a monitor on her plugged up to her phone every day, 24 hours a day until she had her baby.
And Rose, have you had health problems since you lost your baby yourself?
Yeah. Still do.
What kind of, are you the same type of thing or different than?
Well, some of it be the same thing, some of it be a lot different. Sometimes I have a problem right now with my stomach that when I eat or drink anything, my stomach hurts real bad. So right now they trying different medication on me for that.
And you've never had any kind of symptoms like this before?
And my biggest problem is a lot of times I'll be tired a lot, I have headaches a lot, and you know, sometimes you wake up and feel like you've been in a boxing match with somebody. That's the way I feel a lot of times. Sometimes I have bad muscle spasms where my leg and stuff cramps on me real bad to where I don't want to get up or move, I just want to lay there until it go away.
All of us have that, the muscle spasms under our neck. It feels like our neck is just drawing in the thighs of our legs. About a week after the spraying, I woke up one morning and I had these bruises all on my legs where, you know, we would just get bruises for no unexplained reason. And they would stay there, you know, sometimes for a week or two. They would disappear and then in a few days we'd have some more.
Y'all need to, Channel 2's here, y'all need to give them some of this also. You don't have, you do say that. I wish y'all put on here more specifics about the pesticide itself. Does David have that? David, do you have any more about the pesticide itself? The paper just mentioned some of the symptoms that people are receiving. Do you have
I've got
anything about
some stuff in my files at the office on diazinon as well as some other
Would you like
similar
that sent
chemicals.
tomorrow or something? I tell you, I'd like a copy of that.
Okay.
We're in the did not sell.
Want us all up there?
all of you all know why we gathered here today. This is a mock ceremony, but in reality it's not mock, it's real. Because workers all across this country, and particularly in the state of Louisiana, are losing lives. Okay? at the expense of corporational heads, at the expense of profit. It is wrong. It is wrong. It is truly wrong that a person give their life and work for a decent standard of living for all, for their families and what have you. That once they're injured on the job, they're no more than just another figure that has no value. It is wrong. It is wrong. The state of Louisiana, the governor, Buddy Romer, brags and confessed that he did so much on the environmental issues. I said to the Buddy Romer, the state officials of Louisiana, clean up your own house. This is a part of your house. Recognize that everybody in society are human beings and not machines just to be used, abused, and thrown away. This coffin here represents a death of a part of a person's life, a part of a person's family, an individual woman that was poisoned on the job and lost a baby and lost a child for what all of us stand for. We've given a moment of silent prayer on behalf of this victim, a victim of society. If we all bow our heads for one moment, please. Amen. Last but not least, we're here to expose the vicious attack on the part of the workers that stood up for their rights, to expose a system of injustice, that stood up for their rights and fought for their rights and are under attack today, or being threatened with further harassment, fine, layoff, and what have you. We say to Buddy Romer, clean up your act, fire the supervisors in charge if need be, ask for their resignation, because it was due to their negligence on their part. It was due to their lack of responsibility that they had to their workers. We said take an act on your own and stand up for what you told the states that you're for, and ask for their resignation and discharge. If there's anybody else here who would like to have a brief say, please do so. We're from all over the state, injured workers.
Yeah, it's documented that Buddy Romer put an in-house memo down saying to cut the cost, to cut some of the costs, instead of using licensed pesticide sprayers, he would use maintenance personnel. And that maintenance personnel that was appointed or hired under the Civil Workers Act or whatever is the one that went in there and sprayed, but Buddy Romer is the one that's directly responsible.
We'd like to have Brenda Fox, who is one of the exposed workers, say a few words about just what happened so that we can lay down and learn from this so it doesn't happen again. And also the Consumers League and the Injured Workers Union calls for Swan's resignation because she's primarily responsible for the deaths and for the suffering that these people are continuing to feel as harassed workers. Brenda
Gomez,
Fox.
too. He wants to be a mayor now, though.
Good.
The state of Louisiana is supposed to be responsible for maintaining the health and lives of their employees. What better natural resource do you have than your people? Our lives were put in jeopardy on the morning of July the 12th, 1989, when this pesticide was sprayed in our office. We had no say-so about the pesticide being sprayed, and when we asked to leave, we were told that we had to use our sick leave. After Rose Williams' baby died, I was called in and told I was giving her too much information about hiring an attorney. They should have thought about that the morning they sprayed that pesticide and didn't want us to leave. A month after I was called in, all of my employees were removed from my supervision. I have been a supervisor with the state for the last 12 years. In an article in May 1991, Ms. Martha Swan, the Deputy Secretary, was quoted in the newspaper as saying they were not going to report the fact that I was working out a classification to the Department of Civil Service, that if I got laid off or demoted, Civil Service would do it and not DNR. This is a direct violation of Civil Service laws. If it was not for the reason of giving my employees too much information, why were they hesitant to report that my duties and responsibilities have been removed from me? I'm presently being laid off at the Department of Natural Resources. With 24 years state service, I have bumping rights, be glad Rose Williams is getting the medical care that she needs. I think that our governor needs to look into this situation and do something about his political appointees in this department. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Brenda. The bottom line is, for consumers, for workers, injured or whole, this situation brings two important lessons. One is that those at the top make decisions that affect the health, well-being, and financial welfare of the people that they are given to supervise. Political appointees in government should be setting an example for a safe workplace, and they're not. North Carolina, 25 workers were burned to death or suffered from smoke inhalation because an employer wanted to stop chicken thievery. In Louisiana, at the Department of Natural Resources, 12 workers were injured because they were mandated to stay on the job because they were going to lose the state money when an office pesticide was used that shouldn't have been. And for the sake of efficiency and the bad example shown that a worker's life doesn't matter as long as the job gets done, tells the industry to go ahead and pollute, go ahead and injure your workers. We're not giving much of a damn, and neither should you. The laws are weak and they need to be changed. The workers' compensation system is insufficient. It needs to be changed. And hopefully, as an example to the workers who suffered from this, Governor Romer will ask for the resignations of the administrators involved and to clean up his act so that if he really is an environmental governor, he'll show it by dealing with his appointees directly. Thank you.
I would like to make one other comment. The day after I was called in by the Undersecretary, I received a call from Workman's Comp, and they told me then, after initially denying my request that they pay my $25 doctor bill for my sinus infection, the next morning I received a call from the Office of Risk Management, and they told me that they would pay my $25 doctor bill, but that I would have had to drink the pesticide for it to cause me any problems. Since that $25, they have paid nothing else. My medical bills right now are totaling around $15,000 from that pesticide. Not one other dollar has been paid. I took that $25 to be my hush money, but it wasn't near enough. Rose Williams has had none of her medical bills paid by Workman's Comp. Something needs to be done about the Workman's Comp laws in this state.
Any questions? Thank you.